This is the legend of
the amazing Mr. Babooñez.
Once upon a time, in the mystical land of the homestead savannah, there lived a happy family of baboons. They were a talented and gifted family of 3. However, one of them in particular was unique, Mr. Babooñez. He was an extremely smart young primate with a particularly keen obsession over physics. One day, when Mr. Babooñez woke up, he found himself somewhere he didn't recognize. Suddenly, he realized he had been teleported in his sleep to the nearby planet of Cloo. Using his impeccable intuition of physics, he realized that the gravitational acceleration on Cloo was 10 meters per second squared. Mr. Babooñez looked around in a daze, trying to figure out how he could escape this planet and return to his family on Earth. Scoping out the bleak terrain, he noticed that there was some sort of carnival to the south. It was the sole glimmer of hope, and he began to make his way towards it. Upon reaching the carnival, Mr. Babooñez was greeted by a cheerful-looking clown.
"Hey there,
The clown said.
are you looking for your way back home? Well, it ain't free, bud. You gotta prove yourself through the Cinco Carnival challenges. Complete all 5 challenges and I'll send you home."
Startled, Mr. Babooñez stuttered.
Okay.
The clown laughed maniacally, saying,
"Alrighty, bud. The first challenge is juggling!"
Mr. Babooñez, still somewhat distraught, muttered.
Okay.
In reality, though, Mr. Babooñez had a trick up his sleeve. He had been practicing his juggling for years at the juggling club at Homestead Savannah, and was proficient at the art. However, with the slightly different gravitational acceleration on Cloo, he needed to start with some basic exercises. One tip in learning how to juggle is throwing the balls at consistent heights so that they land at the same time. If Mr. Babooñez wants the ball to reach a height of 20 centimeters above his hand, so that it will be about his eye level, with what velocity does he need to throw the ball? If he throws it with the velocity calculated in the previous question, how long will it take for the ball to come back down to his hand? Mr. Babooñez has mastered catching the ball after throwing it straight up. Now, it's time for him to throw the ball from one hand to the other. If the distance between his hands is 10 centimeters, and he throws the ball at an angle of 70 degrees, with what velocity should he throw the ball? Finally, Mr. Babooñez has mastered the esteemed art of juggling. He went up to the clown and demonstrated his perfect 3-ball juggling skills. The clown was baffled.
"Well, how'd you learn juggling in such a short time?"
Mr. Babooñez just shrugged, glad that he had joined the Homestead Juggling Club. But the clown wasn't satisfied.
"Don't act so smug. That was the easiest challenge. To get to the next of the Cinco Carnival challenges, you're gonna have to get past this."
He pulled a sheet off a large object next to him, revealing a baboon cannon.
"If you can position the cannon correctly, you'll be able to get to the next challenge."
Mr. Babooñez, terrified, stammered.
Okay.
He climbed into the cannon and started doing physics calculations in his big baboon brain. If the next challenge is 500 meters away and the cannon shoots at a velocity of 100 meters per second, what angle should he shoot the cannon at? Thanks to his genius calculations, Mr. Babooñez landed perfectly into the next challenge. He landed on a nice soft cushion next to a cliff where the clown was waiting for him.
"Impressive, Mr. Babooñez. You've made it to the second challenge, the ramp challenge. The first part of the challenge is to make it up the cliff. Here, take this elevator."
Okay.
Mr. Babooñez said confusedly, getting into the elevator. The elevator exerts a constant upward force of 500 newtons. If Mr. Babooñez has a mass of 30 kilograms, with what acceleration is he going up the cliff? The height of the cliff is 100 meters. The upward force of the elevator stops at time B as it goes up. If Mr. Babooñez perfectly stops at the top of the cliff, how long did it take him to arrive at the top? Mr. Babooñez successfully made it to the top of the cliff. The clown was surprised.
"Wow, you got up here really fast, but now it's time for the hard part of the challenge. Look down. What do you see?
Mr. Babooñez looked down and saw a ramp leading to
Dun dun dun.
a pool of sharks. Mr. Babooñez's eyes widened in fear. The clown laughed.
You must get into this boat and go down the ramp. If you don't want to die, you have to get to the pool in exactly 15 seconds. That's when the sharks will go to sleep for 1 minute, which is just enough time for you to get out of the pool. Have fun!
Mr. Babooñez, trembling with fear, stuttered out.
Okay.
The ramp is angled at 30 degrees and has a height of 100 meters. What does the coefficient of kinetic friction between the boat and the ramp need to be for Mr. Babooñez to reach the pool in exactly 15 seconds? Thanks to his unparalleled intellectual ability, Mr. Babooñez was able to get out of the pool just before the sharks awoke. After getting out of the pool, he walked until he came upon a huge frictionless roller coaster track. The clown suddenly appeared behind Mr. Babooñez.
Well, looks like you made it past the sharks, but you won't be able to make it past this next challenge. To complete this challenge, you need to make it through this entire track. Quick, jump on the cart!
The clown exclaimed. Mr. Babooñez was startled.
Okay.
If the 10-kilogram roller coaster cart was moving at 40 meters per second and Mr. Babooñez jumped on the cart, what is the final velocity of the cart? After Mr. Babooñez jumps on the roller coaster cart, he comes across a steep drop. If the height of the drop is 15 meters, what is his velocity at the bottom of the drop? What is the radius of the loop that will allow Mr. Babooñez to complete the loop if his velocity before he goes on the loop is 20 meters per second? Mr. Babooñez got past the loop and was relieved, but up ahead there was a cliff that led back to the pool of sharks. Luckily, a stray roller coaster cart was heading towards Mr. Babooñez and his cart. If Mr. Babooñez and his cart are moving at 20 meters per second, what velocity does the stray cart need to have to stop Mr. Babooñez after they collide? After being hit head-on by a roller coaster cart moving at 80 meters per second, Mr. Babooñez had completed the roller coaster challenge, barely alive. As Mr. Babooñez was gathering his wits, the clown came down from the sky.
If it isn't Mr. Babooñez, you made it past the roller coaster just as I expected. But you won't be able to roll your way out of this one.
Poof!
Behold, the unicycle challenge. Ride this unicycle to the top of the ramp and you'll make it to the next challenge.
Okay.
Mr. Babooñez replied. The mass of the unicycle is 5 kilograms and the radius is 0.5 meters. If we assume all the mass is on the side of the wheel as a thin hoop, what is the rotational inertia of the unicycle wheel about its central axis? At the bottom of the ramp, Mr. Babooñez and the unicycle are rolling without slipping at a velocity of 10 meters per second. What is the total kinetic energy at the bottom of the ramp? If Mr. Babooñez and the unicycle roll without slipping up the ramp, what is the maximum height of the ramp so that he can just reach the top? Assume there is no loss of energy. The clown was waiting for Mr. Babooñez at the top of the ramp.
I didn't expect you to make it this far, Mr. Babooñez. You made it to the last of the Sicko Carnival challenges, the Trapeze Challenge. If you swing over to that ledge, you'll be able to get off Cloo and go back home.
If the distance to the platform is 1 meter and the maximum amplitude is at an angle of 15 degrees, what is the length of the trapeze rope? How long does it take Mr. Babooñez to swing to the other side, assuming the rope remains taut? What is Mr. Babooñez's max speed during the swing? Mr. Babooñez got to the ledge in less than 2 seconds. The clown pondered.
Guess I should have made that last one harder. Well, since you got through all of the single carnival challenges, I'm letting you go this time. Here you go, a rocket.
And Mr. Babooñez got in.
Well, nice meeting you, Mr. Babooñez. Oh, by the way, my name is Newty.
Mr. Babooñez shrugged and said,
Okay.
Good luck on your journey. Goodbye.
Mr. Babooñez rocketed off of Cloo and back towards his home in the homestead savannah. What is the minimum velocity Mr. Babooñez needs to escape Cloo's gravitational pull if Cloo has a mass of 6 times 10 to the 24th kilograms and a radius of 6.33 times 10 to the 6th meters? Newty sat down and stared longingly at Mr. Babooñez's retreating form.
Please, come back soon,
He said sadly. In reality, Newty was very lonely. The only time he ever got company was when random beings from Earth were teleported to Cloo, and he always tried to come up with difficult physics challenges to keep them there for as long as he could. But each time, it'd never be enough, and Newty would just end up at square one, alone, heartbroken, straining to stand up, only to be inevitably defeated once again. And this, kids, is why you should learn physics, so you don't get trapped on another planet with a clown named Newty.